happy Monday. Oh,
It
God.
is Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should not. Dear baby Jesus, I should not treat Monday such a way. Well, welcome to M3 Live Midday with your man Malcolm and Greg and Malcolm. It is Monday, September the 30th, the year of our Lord 2024. Happy Monday, Malcolm.
Happy Monday. It's the last day of the fiscal year.
It is. I was so disheveled at the opening because you triggered me. We were talking about donuts, and that's going to be my human interest story. So
Okay.
through all of the news I have, I'm going to tell y'all something. I went out for dinner last night. It was good. I had pizza. But there was something that happened with something that's beloved by Americans that I, the talented Mr. Drayton, did not have a good time. And then I'm going to tell you the joys of living in, well, I don't even know if Albany's small town America anymore. Because apparently you fucking have everything I love. And the next broadcast may be from beside Malcolm in Albany. I don't know. We're going to say, well, let's go ahead and jump into this weekend's news. Let's start with the Middle East. They are ratcheting up the bombs, and they have killed the top leader of Hamas. They have killed several underlings of his. Hamas has come out with Hezbollah.
Yeah.
They have come out with a retaliatory statement, and we're going to get you and your little dog too. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Well, again, if you watched the show Saturday, I kind of went through like this is never going to end. They're fighting over little scraps of land. You know, I hate your mama. They're giving each other wet willies, and now they have money with weapons. You know, so in Israel, under the guise of its and I don't want anybody to think that we don't support Israel. Good God Almighty. I don't want to be looked at as anti-Semitic because you don't support Israel. But listen, there's a time and a place and a date. Listen, I think Bibi Netanyahu is using this to the hill, you know, because he was on his way out the door before October the 7th happened.
Yeah.
So we're a year out. We went from blaming the Palestinians to now they're all the way fighting up north, with the Lebanese and all those people. And Joe Biden probably couldn't be happier. He's probably like, nigga, whatever. You know what I mean? And he's just counting down the days at this point because he's like, I'm too old for this shit. And so watch this space because it's going to be, they dropped about 100 bombs this weekend.
Yeah, that was in Beirut. And I saw some, like most people don't think, some people will group these, Hamas and Hezbollah together. Like, they're different because Lebanon has the ability to fight back in the way that
they do.
Like Beirut actually does have a military, and it's an industrialized nation. Lebanon is, so yeah, it's not.
Thanks to the U.S. Thanks to the U.S.
Yeah,
we blew it all up in the 80s and we had to rebuild it. Now they go nanny boo boo. Listen, and it's all going to be the same. So. Secretary Tony Blinken is in and out of the region, and they allegedly making deals that Bibi is not sticking to. He's like, I'm going to do this. Yeah. So I tell you guys, please pay attention to foreign things because we have a tendency as Americans if it doesn't affect us. But if you like that $2.76 gas, you want to keep it, pay attention to what they're doing in the Middle East because OPEC is still real and we still get, 28% of our oil from the Middle East. We're doing a good job with weaning ourselves off of it, but there's still a substantial amount that we get from them. In national news, we had a hurricane this week. Hurricane Helena. What a bitch. This bitch. Hurricane Helena, in her aftermath, killed anywhere from 89 to 100 people in her aftermath, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it was surprising that there were more deaths in Virginia and North Carolina than there were in Florida, and I think that was just due to flooding. Yeah, there was a lot.
Full impact. It was Category 4 when it hit Florida, but the flooding took out the game.
Yeah, it was surprising. Yeah.
For you climate deniers, listen, climate change is real. These storms. It's another one brewing out near Jamaica.
Yeah.
In Haiti, they're going to just be blown off the map. The Biden administration has offered millions in assistance. So, keep it going. Keep it going. In New York City news, the mayor, Eric Adams, is vehemently talking about his innocence. Anybody except Chuck Schumer and that yummy Hakeem Jeffries has stopped short of calling for his resignation. In this weekend's news, Governor Holcomb has made a statement to say, basically what they've been saying, and what's going to have to happen. The black constituency is going to have to make it okay for her to force his resignation or to make him or to remove him. So, and just in case you don't know, he was indicted on 3 charges of campaign fraud, taking from a foreign government, and wire fraud. So, the first NYC mayor to be under indictment. Does that sound familiar? And my problem with this, he is steadily kind of reiterating right-wing talking points.
Yeah.
Persecution.
It should be noted that Trump is supporting him. Let's just say something right.
And so let me tell you, he's not going to be mayor by the end of the week. That is my prediction. Yeah. But Saturday at noon comes, my first story is going to be NYC mayor forced out of office.
Because it should be noted that these are the charges they could most easily bring. There are other things that they could bring. And the way that they would do that are people flipping. And because he was not the only one involved. And, I think as people start seeing and eyeing down some prison time, people are going to start yapping. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then how I'm pissed about it is, goddamn, Al Sharpton says, "Oh, don't be too quick to persecute him." And so, during the press conference after the charges went announced and he went in an arraignment, he hides behind this 92-year-old woman. And I love the fact that the people in the audience, "Don't be hiding behind that old lady, you're a criminal." And there's black people saying,
"Oh yeah, that was it was the most New York press conference ever." It was just like, I think he is very New York, right? The interruptions were very New York, and there was all these car horns and sirens everywhere. I was like, this is the most New York I've ever seen in my life.
Someone who lived in New York almost a decade.
Yeah.
I love that the noise in the background just becomes, you don't even hear it anymore. I remember on the phone with my sister one time. She's like, "What in the fuck is all that?" And I'm like, "What?"
It's so true, though. It's so New York. Yeah.
I'm like, "What noise?" Surely you're kidding. All right, real quick. In the state of the race, of course, they are out there shaking it, grooving it, and moving it. Several polls came out on Friday and over the weekend showing that there is momentum for Vice President Harris and Tim Walz. Speaking of Tim Walz, there is a vice presidential debate on CBS Tuesday at 9 p.m. Programming note, join us when we're doing a live simulcast is the word I keep looking for at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Me, Malcolm, and a whole lot of your favorite black people with great beards will be here to entertain you. We will laugh. I don't think the debate's going to be a substantive a win or a loss for either one of them because they're both sane people in their own rights. It's just, I believe, if the senator from Ohio chooses to please an audience of one, or he's a smart man, he's an author, So he's not necessarily going to sit there and look like his boss, like an idiot. But that's if he chooses to go that route. The other route is, I'm going to go down with boss, you know. And I think, good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. How are you? And I think the thing I want to see from Governor Walz is a little more pop,
Yeah.
a little more granular detail, or that he has a grasp of it. That's all he has to do.
Yeah.
Was pretend like he's.
I think I'm going to put this on the record. You know, maybe we can put this on, play this back if I'm wrong. I feel like JD is such a, like, you know, political climber that he kind of knows that they're going to lose and that he wants to get as much political clout as he can out of this nomination. So I just don't feel like he's going to go down with Trump.
So
he's trying to build his own career. Yeah,
we are the opposite twins. I'm going to do the exact opposite. I think he does not want to get murdered by MAGA.
Right. I think he wants to be the successor to MAGA.
Right, but the only way he can do that is go down the route.
Right, you have to look like it. Doesn't mean that you actually have to do it. Like, it's kind of like, I'm gonna be your friend up until the end while I got the knife ready to go in your back.
Well, but with that said, that means he's gonna have to go, because I think in their prep, anybody I know, nobody will talk about their prep. I'm calling everybody for feverish. Right. Nobody's talking about it. And I think if they're smart, because they have rebuttals for everything for Governor Walz, so I think he'll be. I think he'll surprise everybody. All he has to do is stand up there and breathe. It's I mean, true. You know, let's be real.
He's a good talker. He is.
Yeah,
I think his policy positions are untenable, but you know, he can wiggle.
Well, I don't know. I tend to believe that Democrats overpromise all the time, and you know, none of it's implementable. I believe that, but they work really hard. But I must say, he's a sitting governor, and I must say, Minnesota is a successful state. They're a successful state in many ways, and they've implemented, you know, the food programs, and they have a lot of Somali immigrants, and they have seamlessly integrated into Minnesota's society. So he's had a ton of things to, you know, that he's implemented as governor. So, and he was in the Congress for, I don't know, 12, 13 years. So he had, you know, and the thing that I read an article this weekend, the thing that you know, I'm dying to get to this Krispy Kreme story. The thing, and that he, the AP ran a story this weekend that he is a good debater. I think we are taking for granted that he is a happy grandpa, but they are saying be careful because he's vicious. He's the nigga that came up with weird, you know. I mean, he is, you know, and they should just beware. All right, so we are about 36 days away from the election, Malcolm, and just as a matter of a person that has to cover this, I cannot be happier. So on the campaign trail this weekend, Trump was in unnamed battle state, you know, Pennsylvania, Julie Doobie. Anyway, any state he was there. The dark period of the campaign has started for him. He is they're going to tear it down. I think at one point he said Mexicans are going to break into your house and kill your family in the kitchen, unquote, quote unquote. And then he went to saying Madam Vice President was born mentally inept, and Joe became that way, but she was born that way. So watch this space, and good fucking luck, America. We hope. Stay classy. That's all I gotta say, because I don't necessarily believe the polls. I think it's hopefully
you're hitting your microphone a lot.
Right. So
yeah.
I hope it's going to be one of those 2020 things, or those, where it was kind of, and then everybody did the exact opposite. So we'll see. I hope so. Now, but as we always do, please go to www.vote.gov and register to vote. I know here in Georgia, early voting starts on the 15th, and we've started early voting in many, many states: Virginia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. I think Baby Tijuana has gotten it correct, and they've got the ballots correct.
Yeah.
Real quick, SNL was, if you did not see it, please make sure you go back online. Maya Rudolph has reprised her role as Funt Kamala, Vice President Kamala Harris. Jeff Gaffigan stood in as Tim Walz. Dana Carvey is doing Joe Biden. I love it. Well, that's how Maya is saying that Kamala says Joe Biden. It is hilarious.
Pretty good.
We have to, and she says real quick, y'all. She says we have to think. We can't do anything without thanking the one that made this possible, Joe Biden. 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. I am in my office watching this, about to die. So if you ever get a chance, just some fun news, go check out Weekend's episode of SNL. Now the host, I love Gene Smart, but anyway, let's go ahead and get down to this human interest story. It's about donuts. Okay, so. Well, I'll talk about this next Monday, how we were talking online about people that support the other candidate that we don't support, and they can't, because now I'm starting to challenge them and say, well, what policy you like? They don't know how to answer. But then Malcolm and I got into a conversation about donuts, about Krispy Kreme to be more exact. So in this conversation, he taunted me by saying, hey, there's one at the end of my fucking block. I was like, what? So, America, in case you do not know, he already lives in a town with M&M's. What's the other factory down there?
M&M Mars. They have a Miller Brewery.
Mm-hmm. All the fun stuff. And now there's a Krispy Kreme factory. Factory, not just the store with the goddamn light on. It's a factory, America. A whole goddamn factory. Yeah. So, back to my story. So I go out to some delicious pizza at this delicious chain here in Atlanta called Fellini's. It's delicious. So we finished up Fellini's, and we said, I'm in the city. I want Krispy Kreme, Malcolm. Now, I'm really funny about, I don't like the light on.
Right.
So when we rolled up to it, I noticed the light was not on. So the donuts have now cooled, right? Perfect. That's my shit. So I love it. You're like, and Malcolm says, yeah, me too, right? You agreed.
Yeah.
And then he said he don't really like.
Yeah, but they're better the older they are. Like maybe 2-3 days for me. Like I kind of don't. They're too soft and gooey for me.
That's how I like those. I like the ones you buy from the store. Remember the ones you used to buy in the bag?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of the cake donuts rather than like the doughy.
Okay. You're a true fat boy. I love it. You just want all of them. Yeah. Oh no. Well, because the glaze gets sticky, some on your hands and stuff. But anyway, so I digress. So I go through there. I was like, give me 3 jelly donuts. 3 jelly donuts, real simple. And the homies all, we're gonna get a dozen of this, and we're gonna split up the dozen. Y'all fat? Ooh, that's a lot of sugar. So I get out of line. I got my 3 jelly donuts, right? And I said to myself, I ain't gonna even be fat, Malcolm. I'm gonna wait till I get to the house. My 3 jelly donuts. And I'm only gonna have 1 tonight, and I'm going to have 2 tomorrow with my coffee. Yummy. So I come in my
They are
office.
good with coffee. Yeah,
they're delicious with coffee. So I come in my office last night. I sat down, and I was going to watch Matlock, right? Because it was like I recorded Matlock because I'm old. you know, the new Matlock with Kathy Bates, because I'm old, and CBS is now for old people, and I'm now in that demographic. So check it out. Mr. Fitzhugh, welcome, sir. So I'm in my demographic, I guess. So I open the bag and it smells delicious. I bite it, Malcolm. There's no goddamn jelly. There's no
like a pocket of air, or was it just all dough on the inside?
It's just sweet dough. It's just sweet fucking dough. Listen.
Like a donut without a hole. Just like
right. And so then, but no, at the first bite, I was like, oh, maybe all the jelly slid to the other side. I was like, no.
They just forgot.
No. I was like, there's no jelly in this whatsoever. So I'm thinking about this, right? I'm like, there's no jelly in this donut. So then now, one has to turn into two because I have to see if the other one has jelly. Bite into it, no jelly, right? So then now I've lied to myself, and now I've eaten 2 donuts, right, bro? All right. So I said to myself, hey, KG, and what's going on, brother? So I say to myself, Greg, wait until the morning, okay? Get up, what you gotta do. Start work. All right. So let me try to speed through this. So I sat down, right here, I sit down, and I said, there's no goddamn way. This third donut does not have jelly. Now, just the journalist in me wants to know, have you ever had a jellyless donut? Are you a fan of jelly donuts?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I like the cake type donuts, so they don't usually make those jelly. I like like sometimes around this time of year they'll have like the pumpkin donuts or sour cream donuts.
I like those. Now, do you like everything pumpkin? Are you that person? Are you pumpkin?
No, I just like a cake donut. I mean, they're all good to me. I mean,
I find those pumpkin people, they're like me and swag. We're like.
I don't like pumpkin in general. Like, I think it's not that tasty.
Just like, you don't realize they make it that way. Pumpkin on its face is not delicious. So anyway,
no, it's not. I don't understand people's obsession with it.
It's marketing.
Yeah,
it's marketing. It was white people and they make candles and they make coffee and they make donuts. Anyway, so I sit down and I go and I bite into it, and I'm still yet optimistic. I'm still yet optimistic, America. So I sat my fat ass down in this very desk at this very time, and I said, "I'm coffee piping hot, and that one donut, that lone donut, is just in the bag." Right, so I dig down in there and get my hands all fucking sticky because the rest of the donuts were on top, and I had to get my hands all sticky. So I was like, oh, it's ready because it's like it's been in the bag. It's got a little air to it, so it's got a little hard, but it's not stale. All right, so I bite into it. Yet still optimistic because I'm like, oh well, maybe with this one the dough it's on the other side. So I go and I bite the other side. And lo and behold, bro, guess what happened?
No jelly.
No fucking jelly. 3 donuts in a row. No jelly. I was struck out. So,
oh god.
I didn't know. I don't know what should I call Krispy Kreme.
Right.
And then so I told Malcolm before we've been on the air. I said, and sadly, this is the Krispy Kreme that Shaq owns. Mm. And it's clean. It was wonderful. The service was good. But y'all ain't got no goddamn jelly. And I just don't know what to do. So what do I now? I'm going to ask you, friend to friend, how we've been friends. What would you call to the Krispy Kreme?
I wouldn't, but I would say if you had the inclination, I am actually in awe of people who do this. So I actually have a friend from back in the day when I went to church, and his mom's name was actually Karen. And he would call the grocery store if her fruit withered a little bit the next day. And she'd be like, I bought these bananas. They didn't have a spot on them this morning. They all spotted. I want fresh bananas, and I want an apology from the manager for these. I mean, like, I'm I'm in favor of people getting shit from businesses and being righteously upset. I couldn't do it because I just don't care enough.
Well, but it's like finding out there's no Santa Claus when there's no jelly in a donut. I mean,
it's I cannot remember the last time that happened. I know it happens, but I don't need donuts enough to.
I took 8 minutes of my 30 minutes to tell y'all that I am upset. I'm done.
That is one of those situations where you could plow those minutes into them and make their day bad. I don't know if that makes you happy.
And I won't yell. I'm not going to yell because I think it's kind of comical. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to be. Yeah, I'm going to tell y'all. Let me give y'all 20
I would feel so subconscious about like I didn't get my jelly.
Yeah. Like, hey, can I speak to the manager? Hello, this is the Krispy Kreme manager. I'm like, okay, hi. I was in the drive-thru last night. You gotta say, you ain't gotta give a real friendly hi. Hi.
Oh god, yeah.
I was in the drive-thru last night, and yeah, I got some jelly, and none of them had jelly. Because I mean, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And tune in Saturday. I'm gonna let y'all how the jelly donut went. Malcolm, what do you have for us today, sir? Thank you. Please don't forget to vote.
I got a couple of topics on, I guess, sort of like judging the way people think about things. So this content creator has a video about reading The Psychology of Money. And I know we read that book actually some years ago, and so it's really good.
We did.
It's a really good book, and I think the premise of the book is that before you get into budgeting and investing and the numbers and the math, you really got to get to what money means to you and how your emotions, positive and negative, affect your decision making. And so I think this person who's in finance is talking about that, and I'll just play it real quick.
To come up with $400 today to cover a personal emergency, where would you get it? Would you pull it out of an emergency fund? Do you have savings? Would you put it on a credit card? Would you take out a payday loan? Would you borrow it from your sister? Currently reading The Psychology of Money, and my little budgeting nerdy brain is super fascinated by this. It's been such a good read, but I want to share a passage with you. Every financial decision a person makes sense to them in that moment. It checks the boxes that they needed to check. They tell themselves a story about what they are doing and why they are doing it, and that story has been shaped by their own unique experiences. Take, for example, lottery tickets. Americans spend more money on lottery tickets than movies, games, music, sporting events, and books combined. I found that shocking. And you know who buys them? Mostly poor people. The lowest income households in the United States on average spend $412 a year on lottery tickets. That's 4 times the amount of those in higher income groups. 40% of Americans cannot come up with $400 in an emergency, which is to say that those who are buying $400 in lottery tickets are by and large the same people who say that they could not come up with $400 in an emergency. That seems crazy to me, and it probably seems crazy to you, but it really got me to thinking about something in the personal finance space that I think is grossly missing, and that is a level of compassion. Money is such an emotional thing, and I think a lot of the personal finance creators, the personal finance bros out there, treat it like it's just math, like it's just numbers. There's a creator who comes up on my For You page quite often. He has a podcast, people on his podcast, and they share their budgets with him, and then he gives them a breakdown of what he thinks. And I am shocked and appalled at the way that he speaks to these people. And this is no shade to this creator, because I'm not trying to start online drama with anybody, but the way that he speaks to these people, I find it shocking. I would never allow someone to speak to me that way. And yes, these people are making stupid decisions with their money. I am shocked by some of the things that these people who come on his show are doing with their money. However, money is not just math. It's not just black and white. It is a highly emotional thing. We make money decisions from our place of emotions almost always first. And I think so many people in this personal finance space, I don't know, maybe they haven't been through things, maybe they haven't made poor money decisions, and so they treat it like it's very matter of fact, like a math thing, and it's not. You've got to get your money mindset together before you can ever get your actual budget together. There's so much shame around money, around not having enough, about having debt, around how we manage our money and what we choose to spend. And shame is a completely useless emotion. Shame is an emotion that causes you to do nothing except hide from solutions. And so when I watch shows like this particular creator's show, he is perpetuating shame. The way that he speaks to people, I can only imagine causes more shame for those people who go on his show. I don't know, but they've seen his show and they choose to go on it. There's a pot for every lid, so maybe it works for them.
Yeah.
Now, see, I look at it totally different. Go ahead.
But no, I was going to say, one of the things that I would definitely recommend the book, The Psychology of Money. And I remember, personally having this antithesis, I don't know what, I hated the lottery. Yeah, I fucking hate the lottery because I feel like it is a poor tax. It is. And I understand that, you know, like people want, in the book, he explains like how people want to have the ability to imagine being rich. You know, they want to imagine going on vacations and doing all the things that they see on TV and feeling some sort of worth. And, you know, the lottery gives them that imagination, right? Like you otherwise these things are outside their reach. And so like it isn't really about the logical nature of like, oh, I could take that $400 and actually put it into some sort of emergency fund or even invest it into, you know, some sort of index fund and actually have something, you know, that's worth something rather than, you know, it is crazy. Yeah. And the fact that, you know, it is the number one form of entertainment of poor people, right? Like beyond television, beyond games, beyond sports, beyond whatever. The lottery is the thing that we spend the most money on.
100 million chance lottery.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that is clearly because of our psychology about what it means, what it offers us as a potential. And so, although that seems crazy, we also have to realize, like, to believe that our decisions about money are completely logical is in itself a bit crazy, because there's so much evidence around us to show us that we're never really logical about the way we spend money. I mean, some people are. They're usually autistic. But you know,
no, I do. Because it's well, it was my livelihood for other people.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean, and that's a little different. So my thing is, hey, listen, you know, and you do have to get mean with it, because the issue is, hey, listen, you came to me to fix your shit. It's like a personal trainer. You know, that's
I agree. I think different things work for different folks, and you're right. Like, and I think even she has to admit that, like, different people probably need different things.
Yeah, because she getting all. He ain't gonna talk to me like that. I bet you her finances are fucked.
No. Yeah. I watch her channel. It's not.
Well, okay. But, no, when I say fucked, that means like she makes enough money. But when I'm saying,
like, she has some really good ideas on how to manage money. Yeah,
and some people don't.
She does that for a living too. I was going to say that's her jam.
Oh, okay, yeah. So sometimes, you know, but and you don't have to. And because I felt some kind of way when I was watching this, but you know, you don't have to boss all of your clients. Some clients need and some don't. You know what I mean? Like, you sit down, you do a budget, and it's a recommendation. You're like, hey, you hired me to do this thing. Here you go. You know what I mean? But some people, they just can't. Like,
no, I think some of the things I talked about in the Psychology of Money, because I went back and read a summary of the book. One is, of course, jealousy. Keeping up with the Joneses, thinking about like, thinking about what is necessary for us. Then there's greed, which is really where the lottery comes in. Like, you just want to have all the money. There's also like social pressure when we think about like aspirational, culture in the Black community, for instance. About fashion and jewelry and whatever. I remember seeing this video. I think Devon actually did it, of someone making it rain at a funeral, which was really crazy. Like, they were throwing $100 bills into the casket or whatever. I was like, what are we doing? Or even I
hope they went and got it before they closed it.
I know, right?
Did they show that part?
No, they didn't.
I'm almost certain.
I hope they did. Like, somebody at the graveyard, like, the person was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take a break and go down into this and get all the money."
No, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna be honest, and it may be morbid, but like, we did not bury my mother in her good jewelry. We put costume jewelry on her.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
We're not gonna put good money in the ground.
Right.
I digress, but hopefully they took it out of the casket. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there were stories in the Psychology of Money that was so funny. It was one of them was like a finance person at I want to say Neiman Marcus or one of those like large firms. His net worth was $100 million, and he was still jealous of billionaires. Like that in my head. Like how you have $100 million in net worth, and so he ended up, committing insider trading on a trade that only got him like a couple $1 million and went to prison. When your net worth is $100 million, you barely got like 1% of your net worth from this trade. Like you did not need the money.
The part is, unlike most people that go to jail, bro, he came out and was still fucking rich. That is the crazy part about it. I always tell people, like, why?
Yeah.
Know.
So it's just that we make really weird decisions based on things that make sense to that person. And so,
generally speaking, it's how we were raised. You have a relationship with money that your parents have with money. So, unfortunately, if you grow up poor and now you go to college, you earn money, and you make more money than your parents, you still have a poor mentality. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they talked about that too.
Right.
So they even talked about like this even affects professional investors and money managers. They will sometimes not be able to change the sorts of investments that they would be involved in, say, for instance. So like they talked about the acquisition of bonds are, much more a good idea during low inflationary periods, like, or even in deflationary economics. Bonds are probably your best bet, but when inflation starts to go up, like you should probably sell bonds and go into things that actually increase in value a lot faster. But people who grew up when bonds were good investments, like in their 20s or 30s, will still favor bonds, even though they know intellectually that they're no longer the type of investment you should be getting into. And so like that's just a thing some people call anchoring. Like if something has been a certain way, especially in your youth, you tend to continue with that. We talked about that with like music trends and things. Like people tend to like the music of their 20s and teens. And even if I don't know, that's much more subjective, but still, we anchor towards things that were fashionable or popular in our youth.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I like growth, and I like, I love music from the 90s, but I like new sound. So I tend to anchor myself in the sound of the moment. But as far as money goes, let me just tell y'all something, give y'all some free advice. You can send me a check if you want. But the free advice is find out if your parents are still living. Find out what your relationship, or try to remember if they're not living. Try to remember what your family's relationship was money, how you grew up, think about what class you were in and where you are now. Now, if there's some particular growth, and we need to figure out how to bridge the gap, because you are not your mother, you are not your father. You have allegedly more dispensable income. Now, there are some cases where you're still in the same boat, but austerity looks different when prices are higher. So you need to kind of figure that out as well. But if you have moved on and you're in a different socioeconomic range, I would start off by seeing a therapist, like it's a regular, good old-fashioned therapist. And then I would see a CFP professional after you had a few sessions, because you have to figure out the psychological part of it, and then you can get to the hardcore moving of the money, if you will. So that is my suggestion.
Yeah, that's good. You're doing the paper thing again, dude. It's so loud.
After work, sorry. And my boss sent me stuff over, and I have to. It came out of
okay. It's all right.
When that crinkles, sorry. I'll be here.
I actually have to turn the volume down. Maybe I should just do that anyway. But it is. That is a good point. And I'm gonna move on. This one is actually kind of on the same tip. I'm gonna play it now because of dealing. I have not really watched the news dealing with the hurricane, but this is kind of like a perpetual thing that happens when disasters happen. Is that people will say, "Why didn't you evacuate?" That sort of question. And I felt it kind of went into the same idea of like people making personal decisions and what is it good, what is that criticism for, really? I'm gonna play it real.
The reasons people don't evacuate during hurricanes are the same reasons that people can't leave abusive relationships. And it's almost as if having a lack of resources or a strong support system makes it hard for people to make choices that you think would be better in situations where they are facing danger. And weirdly, people are throwing the "why didn't you leave" at people in both situations. There is no benefit to this question. Whatever answer they provide is not going to change the fact that they need help. Maybe the question should be directed at the people who have the power to create resources and opportunities for people to leave. I would imagine that if people were given fuel cards and a week's worth of groceries and had a voucher for a place to stay, a lot more people would evacuate. Something tells me that would be a lot cheaper than the cost of rescuing people who had to stay behind. And for people who say, "Oh, well, there's shelters." They say that to abuse victims too. Sure, there are shelters. They're a temporary solution, and oftentimes they're underfunded, overcrowded, and come with their own set of risks. But that's another area where money could definitely change the tide. We could make it illegal for employers to have the power to fire somebody if they choose to evacuate. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Focusing on the circumstances that lead to people's decisions is pretty much always more productive at solving the problem than aiming a shaming finger at them.
Well, the thing is, to me, and one of the things I'm getting at is I think a lot of times when people are wanting to shame people for their personal decisions, even when they're bad and obviously wrong, in the case of like people who stayed behind when the hurricane was coming, down, and why didn't they leave? Is that individual choices are governed by external circumstances, like they were saying, just like your ability to up and go, and not to mention your history with such evacuation orders. Like just thinking about the history of the number of times if someone actually had evacuated and didn't have a hurricane and the sort of consequences that came from evacuating when it wasn't necessary, those sorts of histories, change someone's relationship to evacuation orders, right? And so to me, when people make those sorts of things of why you didn't leave, they're not really looking for a solution, right? They're looking for a scapegoat. They're looking for a way to not have to take responsibility for a macroeconomic issue, which is like the infrastructure of disasters. Like we're always coming in after a disaster to fix something when disasters are predictable in a certain regard. We know when the hurricane seasons are coming. We know whether or not infrastructure can withhandle a hurricane. We know that people are not going to evacuate. Like these are known knowns, and most of the time we don't have the political or social wherewithal to do anything about it. And so rather than to make some sort of collective responsibility about it and actually change it, we offload responsibility onto the person, which of course they have responsibility for their own actions. Obviously people make bad choices, they suffer the consequences of them, but that isn't the same as making solutions. And I think sometimes people think that it is that shaming people is like, oh yeah, this is gonna fix something. It is not.
So you don't think the localities providing a physical way out? Because most time when they ask you to evacuate, they offer you a ride, they offer you shelters with food and shelter until the thing is over, and so you don't think that's enough? You don't think?
Well, clearly it's not. When you have a large group of people who don't take advantage of it, there is a larger collective responsibility to get those people out. And so, like, some places do it better than others. I would say one of the reasons why I think about it in my area is like we've had a few bad storms. In fact, they come pretty often. And our infrastructure is bad, right? Like we mentioned that a lot. Just a nice breeze will cause the power to go out, and not for like a few days, but for like a few weeks, So like there are issues there. There are issues with people like, especially with medical problems. That was one of the things that I was seeing. All I'm saying is that it's not really constructive, right? And maybe that's the point. Like, I don't know if anyone is really trying to be constructive. I think they're just trying to make sense of something senseless. Like it's a disaster, and the bad decisions that people made sense to them in that time frame, and like we don't want to accept that.
So
nobody wants to fucking die. No one wants to go.
Exactly, but so, we actually, I retired from HUD, so we actually took a poll after, I don't know what hurricane was. So we actually, because we have to go in with FEMA to rebuild shit. So we actually took a science, I don't know, scientific. We took a point, once they came in for a question on the questionnaire was, what was did you stay or did you go? Oh, I stayed. The next question is, what made you stay? And 80% of the people said, and because I'll never forget this, I did not believe it would be as bad as it was. That is malfeasance. That is just bad decision. And it doesn't matter the structure of them getting out. That is just a bad decision. And so what it is when they call for an evacuation, like if the government says, well, it's going to be a category 4, generally they're going to be boots on the ground. They're going to be buses and food and water. They're going to get them to a safe place. But even if they have been through this thing before, like you have some people that live in low areas, like in Florida, whatever, they have lost everything twice. You know what I mean? And so, and you're sitting at this desk with this vest on, trying not to be judgmental. Like, bitch, this has happened to you before. Why haven't? So, and then you provide the structure for them to leave. You know what I mean? I don't want to leave my house. Bitch, you ain't attacked. We just rebuilt this house for you 3 years ago. And so what then some of them come up crying because they've lost Jimmy, and so you try to be empathetic, like, oh my God, I'm sorry you lost Jimmy.
It's what it is, though. I mean, I get it, I do, because I mean, I'm just it is what it is. You're right. Like when people make bad decisions, like that's the natural reaction to have.
But that is plurality of the reason why. Now,
it's totally justified. I'm not saying it's not.
Right, and so, but I think in her video, she was trying to make the point of don't shame people that don't want to leave their dogs and their cats, bitch, bye. No.
I think what she's saying is like, there's no help from that question.
You know what? I disagree with that because means
it's not going to change anything. Asking someone why they didn't leave, like, and they say, oh, I didn't believe it was going to hit. Okay. What would that have done? Like you're now saying that, when you're warned about a storm coming and you've actually been, hit by storms before, and someone tells you to leave, you're not going to leave. So like,
well, let me tell you, if you answer that question honestly and your aid is contingent upon, oh, I just didn't want to leave my shit, we can say no. You know what I'm saying? So it does matter, and it does change the outcome. And it changed the outcome because Jimmy would have been living. You've killed Jimmy because y'all decided not to leave. Now Jimmy's dead, and you're not going to get any particular help because you chose and you said it. And so, but that trickles down to a certain population that vote for a certain candidate, and they just don't believe nothing is nothing, and up is not down, and down is not up. And I just feel like we are in a place in society that we are not taking accountability for any damn thing, never. Like, Ever, never, never. Everything is, well, what difference is it going to make? Should we not answer the question? Yes, we should answer the question because we need to get down to the psyche of what the fuck were you thinking about?
Yeah. I think that is true. You got to get to what people are thinking about. But the question is, how do you get people to leave? You know, like at the end of the day, right. If people say they don't believe it, then like, what is it? Or, you know, they didn't want to leave their shit. That's a legit thing, right? Okay. And like, and if you're really trying to change people's minds and make people make better decisions, then like, I think you got to get past judgment. Is really what it's getting at.
Yes,
it's not about, you know, because you made bad decisions, right? Like, how do we, as a society, as a group, as a culture, either as institutions, government, or communities, help people make better decisions so fewer people die? And I don't think that judgment helps. It really does come down to understanding.
Well, you have to mix the judgment with consequence, and FEMA and start figuring that out. So your judgment with the consequences now that you
you're right. Yeah, we make a lot of our decisions based on what we think the consequences will be. In fact, that's part of the reason why you're saying people didn't want to leave their shit, because they're afraid of the consequences of leaving their shit. You know.
But the other thing is, then you'll see Meemaw and everybody's sad because Jimmy's dead, so Jimmy's dead now. All their shit is gone, and so guess what? Me, black man, now I'm sitting on the side of that table. I can then judge you for the fact that 95% of the time you just say, "Go ahead, fuck it," you know, we're gonna give you the aid. But the next thing that I'm trained to do is says, listen. If there's another natural disaster, you choose not to leave, we cannot cover you. That is not something. And I'll tell you another thing. Like your natural insurance policies, if they ask you that question and you answer it honestly, they are not going to pay your claim. I'm just telling you right now. Yeah. America, State Farm, raise the roof, whatever you have, is not going to pay the claim because they're going to say you did not take personal accountability, and that's what it is, and that is another reason why insurance is so high, because the liability and the likelihood, you know how actuaries work, you know, they'll say, oh, in Destin Beach, Florida, 40% of the population is determined not to want to leave for whatever reason, so that adds an extra $500 a year in risk.
Yeah.
You know, for the bitch that says, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting mama and I'm getting out of here. But it's but let me put the humanity back in. The humanity back in this is, listen, it is really sad for loss of life that could have been prevented. You know what I mean? It's almost like the electric chair. If you think somebody is guilty, take away their freedom. Don't take away their life. You know what I mean? That is the thing about it. And then if you want somebody to learn a lesson, don't take away their shit and then cutting Jimmy's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing is, and so, you know, FEMA comes in, they teach evacuation, you know, what the different categories are, what they do, you know, what the different categories do. You know, in a Cat 1, you could probably survive it. You know, Cat 2, but a Cat 4 is considered unsurvivable. You will be unalive. It's considered Cat 4 and above is considered, you know, catastrophic. And it's basically, however it turns, it could flatten everything. But my mom always said, "You just don't believe shit stink. Good luck." I mean, that's, you know.
I'm just thinking about the fact that you use the term unalived and you don't even watch TikTok. I just noticed that. How did that become a word anyway?
Well, it does. Like, people get so sensitive.
Yeah. No. I was giggling at that, but okay.
Well, join us on Patreon because I have a whole rant about unalive. Go ahead.
Yeah. I got one more. It's about the bigger, better deal. We kind of talked about that on baiting. This guy kind of.
Aren't you? You're trying to get me. I bet you I'm not gonna let you get me. Go ahead.
Big cities and dating that I want to run by you so that you can help me dispel if New York City is unique or if it's just really a big city problem. One of the things that I've been finding here living in New York, so I'm originally from New York, as I said people move to New York to like make it, right? Jay-Z and Alicia Keys talked about like concrete jungle. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I find that oftentimes people move here from many places and have like these really outsized ideas of what success in New York looks like. Then they realize how expensive it is, that you need to have, in many cases, if you're, depending on the kind of job you have, you might need to have a roommate, you might need to live in like an outer borough, or you might need to live in not your ideal neighborhood. So what can happen is you're not necessarily living the life you thought you would be living. So you are dreaming of this idealized version of a life. And that idealized version of a life might also make you, in some ways, transactional with your relationships with people. And I don't just mean like romantic, like platonic, familial, whatever. And there's also this dynamic that like they need to be set before they can start dating or making the right friends. Or there's also this idea of you have your tier of like, when I moved here, these are my friends, these are the people that I date. And then when you make it to the next tier, like you upgrade. So there's almost this like looking for what's better mindset. I have to imagine that this isn't new, like unique to New York City, but I imagine that this is probably like a big city problem. So whatever region that people typically flock to is probably like a similar dynamic. I just think that New York, because of the lack of affordability and because of the pressures of being here in New York, that it's probably more pronounced. But I feel like the impact that has is that like it makes it feel like everything is very transient and that people are maximizing for the short term and never thinking about the long term. And the vision that comes to my mind is the person who said, I'm going to live in New York for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to spend on Ubers. I'm going to like maybe live in an apartment that's slightly above my means. I'm going to Uber Eats, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's been 10 years and they've been living here longer. And they're not necessarily where they want to be in their career. They're maybe not even necessarily where they want to be in a lot of their places, but it feels like they've never really put down roots. And so they've never really like invested in longer term things. I think that dating here is harder, or just like even finding friends here is harder, is that everybody's thinking about what's next. And so I don't know. Do you see that in like your larger cities like Atlanta, LA, Chicago, etc.? And do you feel like, and maybe let's call them like cities that are like second cities, that you maybe don't see it as much? I know that it's not just a New York problem, but there might be elements that I'm not considering.
We kind of talked about that idea that you know, the bigger better deal may not just be about dating, but just about, as he was saying, the larger context of life. And I've never really considered that, like people who move to a larger city for a career upgrade in general. And so like it kind of makes sense that you might want to do this thing for your social circles and your dating life as well. Be like, you know, maximizing what it is you want. I don't know. It's not my experience. So seems logical.
No, I just think he's bitter. People that are New York City natives tend to think that way. They do. They tend to think outsiders make, most natives of cities think outsiders make their city more expensive, and that you know growth that is not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what he was mentioning, was the idea that people who move to New York are kind of there for maybe a temporary, you know.
Yeah, because that didn't happen. Well, because I was fortunate, you know, I walked into a friend circle. I didn't go to New York just cold blooded. You know what I mean? It was, you know, I had friends and I had, you know, I cultivated a whole. So when I moved there, it was like Norm and Cheers. Norm, you know. Hey, Graham.
Well, I've heard the idea that in sometimes cities are so large, like it's very rare that you would just accidentally bump into someone you know, because it's just like people are going, you know, like what are the chances that you're going to run into somebody, you know, which is like one of those things that in a small town happens all the fucking time.
Well,
you run into people all the fucking time.
But the thing is with that though, your block becomes your town.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, your neighborhood.
Whatever 3 block radius, you're gonna see the same bitches.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Like the 15-minute. Some people say like that 15-minute radius around your place becomes like a city and inside a city, basically. But
the people, it depends on the size of your building.
Yeah.
The people in your building become your town.
Right.
Outside of your building becomes your county. And then the city becomes your state.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true, because there's probably like more people in New York City than there are in like some states. A few states for that.
Hell, in my building right now, there is 5,600 people.
Shit.
5,600 people share the outside address of mine.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree with what he says, but there's some truth into it. Like, I've lived in a few major cities. But I think people, and this is word to the wise, you need to kind of make friends and do things in your circle. Like, you work or whatever, growler, apping, whatever that is, like you start to expand your circle. You find dates, you find friends, you find movie buddies, you find acquaintances. You go to the eye doctor, you meet the girl or the guy at the counter, and this is that. You know the man that the man at the grocery store, and those things become now. It's the larger cities are extremely lonely places, yes, but that's because I tend to think that people come from smaller places. I've never met a stranger, so it's just like, hey,
yeah.
That's the thing about it. We talk as far as inviting people to here with us. I look at like, oh, come to my house. That's how I look at it. I have proof of the fun that we have. Okay, so
let's go on to Patreon. This one now. Also join us tomorrow for the debate. We're gonna start at 8, right?
Yep.
All right. So join Swag and the crew for the Swag Suite starting at 8 instead of 7, and we're gonna do the debate with Tim Walz and JD Vance. But become a patron too, and you'll see our after shows. Let's switch over. I actually have one topic for Patreon if you have time.
Let's go ahead.
It's about the debate, and I'm wondering if you agree with this theory. This one I just heard recently. I've been playing.
MAGA is outgrowing Donald Trump, and Trump knows it. This coming Tuesday is the vice presidential debate. Here is one thing you'll probably see Tim Walz do if his team is smart, and they are. See, there's a really effective wedge in between Trump and JD Vance. And if Walz is smart, he will point at that internal weakness, that there's an intra-party bifurcation that's happening pretty much in front of our very eyes. Trump and Vance are not on the same page. If you've been paying attention, you've seen it. It's happened. It's a little subtle, but it's happened twice now. The first time was when Vance said in this interview that Donald Trump would veto a national abortion ban.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly.
And then Trump got on stage in the debate a couple of days ago and said, I never told JD Vance that.
Running mate JD Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD. In all fairness, JD has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But
forcing JD Vance to then say this.
Kristen, I think that I've learned my lesson on speaking for the president.
But the second time that we saw this friction between Donald Trump and his running mate JD Vance materialize was a much more damaging way. It was Donald Trump separating himself from Project 2025 while JD Vance is one of the authors of Project 2025. Did you ever stop and think to yourself about how strange it was that Donald Trump separated himself from Project 2025?
Come up with this, I don't know what the hell it is, it's Project 25, but I don't know anything about it.
You see, the untrained political eye probably saw Donald Trump separating himself from Project 2025 and thought, yeah, it's really unpopular among most Americans, and that's probably why they did it. And then you just kind of kept going. No, it was much deeper than that. Think to yourself, when has Donald Trump ever cared about what is unpopular to most Americans or independents or Democrats? When has he ever cared about anything that's unpopular among anyone that's not his base? Most of Donald Trump's rhetoric about immigration is wildly unpopular among most Americans, but his base likes it, so he keeps doing it. Donald Trump is always running a primary election. No matter what election he's in, he's only ever talking to his base. So why did he step away from Project 2025? I can tell you why. Donald Trump is losing control of MAGA. Project 2025 and its authors like JD Vance represent where MAGA is going. Trump represents where MAGA currently is. MAGA is outgrowing Donald Trump, and Trump knows it. This break, this bifurcation, is happening right in front of our very eyes. Donald Trump used to be popular because he was the candidate that was critical of politicians and politics, including Republicans and the Republican Party. But now he is the Republican Party. And the friction that we're seeing between something like JD Vance authoring Project 2025 and Trump disavowing it is not just only a manifestation of the ideological differences between these two, it's also a representation of a small growing split in the Republican base. And if Tim Walz is clever, he'll point it out. You and your homie not even on the same page.
Oh, that is brilliant. I never thought that.
It was the first time I thought about it because I was thinking about it like, he doesn't walk away from shit. He doubles down on things. And it is really kind of a glaring change. Like, Now, mind you, he did the other thing that he talked about was an abortion ban. Now, abortion has shown itself to be like a very
yeah,
a really great issue for Democrats, and even Republican women clearly are not on board with abortion ban. So that makes a lot of sense to change positions on that, even though the way the portion of the party that JD represents is doubling down on abortion shit and all of his anti-woman shit that he's been saying. Like, it's amazing how little he has walked away from that shit.
But he is, and all that woman shit that he's is coming from the manosphere of some of those male-centric podcasts, and that's where that shit is coming from. All that shit's broke, and Vice President Harris will not win white men, but I just don't think it's enough men out there to say, because for me the proof is always in the dollars. So, like, Hillary raised a lot of money, right? But it was from corporate donors. You know what I mean? So Harris has millions of first donation imprinted voters. And people, if they give their money, they're going to give their vote. That's just how it works. And so, and I believe she will beat him in the electoral college. And then the ratio of the popular vote will be 3-1, because that's how the money looks.
Yeah.
So I think that's how the vote will look. You know what I mean? He's going to sweep through flyover country. She's going to cut the margins in all the places where she needs to. And, it's going to go from there. I think she hit on something with all this division. And they're arguing amongst themselves because they realize, and the smarter ones to realize they can elevate past him, because it's like he's a bumbling idiot. They're like, oh, he's 80, we need another face. But unfortunately, DeSantis wasn't able. I don't know if JD. No, because the other part is JD is more unpopular than Trump. So I don't think. I think they're gonna have to go deeper. It's gonna have to be a female.
Yeah, I mean, they were. Who was that who replaced Liz Cheney? I can't remember her name.
Yeah, but no, none of them. Listen, Slotkin, none of those hoes. It's going to be somebody coming out the back. Yeah, none of it's got to be.
Yeah, I don't know who she is. Like, she doesn't really cut a national figure. So
right. Well, and then so it could have been the woman, Laura, the woman that did the rebut to Biden's speech, but she fucked.
Wow.
You know what I mean? She fucked it up. It can't be Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she fucked it up. No, so they're gonna have to swipe it all clean and just moving. And the people are like, although I just pray, because we need another party, maybe two.
I know. I kind of say that all the time. You got to have a place to challenge someone's power. Like, if someone is just, if there's no alternative and you have to vote for one party, then it just stagnates. I mean, there are times when
more than one idea.
There are times when an alternative view or a critical lens, makes the right idea even better. Because you actually have someone to challenge. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, if you're not self-critical, like a lot of times in politics, you can't be self-critical. You have to be all in on your idea, and your supporters are all in on the idea because you're concerned about winning. And so the only person who's truly going to be critical of your ideas is a viable opponent. It's just sad.
Because that's what makes the idea better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Reason why and not to be an ass white, but the reason our shows are good because we think differently about the same shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very rare that we kumbaya on some shit. We come. We we come down on some bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that it's really and I appreciate you for that. Always making me think about things, and that it's I'm not always, and I always talking to somebody online the other day, and I think about, you really changed my mind that Joe had to go. Because I was holding on to that like a dog with a bone. I was like, he can
Can you
make it.
imagine if he was in the race right now?
Oh God, I'll be moving to Canada right now. Be like, hey,
I was like, because I admit, like his speech at the UN, I was just like, he's so old. He's so old. He slurs his words now. Oh
God.
God.
The only reason it didn't age Trump because he won't doing shit.
Right. It's true.
We look at Biden, and that's a man that worries about this country. That man's up doing the work, and that's when George Bush gained 40 years. Obama gained 10.
Did too.
So it's when you're up taking care of the nation.
Yeah.
It's it ages you, and like, dude, you already old, bro. Shit.
So yeah, there's that. I thought that was interesting. I do think it's also thinking about the aging thing. I don't know if it's sexist to think about having the first female president and seeing how she's going to age in her presidency, which I assume she's going to win.
Well, the thing is, women handle stress very differently.
They do.
When they can have babies and families, and they can be working and have 30.5 kids and plotting murder. They just
this sort of a thing we'll see. It is weird though how consistently it ages men. Of course, we only have men as a baseline.
We don't know.
We've never had a female president. So.
I mean, I see her looking tired from time to time.
Oh, right now, the first thing I think is saying, "Girl, you need a nap." She's been up for the past 2 months.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what really pissed me off today. I don't know if you ever like wake up and you catch way too early the show before Morning Joe.
I've never.
Well, the guy that hosts that is a cynical dick. He's like, Democrats are wringing their hands because they feel like she's not doing enough. What? and so you are my id. Do you think she's doing enough? Like, I don't think, like, what more can she fucking do?
That's the point. Sometimes people have this idea, like, logically, I don't think there's much more she could do.
Right, like, damn, the bitch was at the border. The bitch, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They're making commercials. Sometimes you see her in the commercial with the same outfit she got on. You be like, damn, bitch, that you just go.
But this is the thing, like, what is that saying that, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. To a critic, everything deserves criticism. Like, it's just what it is. Like, certain people, that's their whole shtick, is to criticize. So, like, if you don't have anything to criticize, what am I doing here? I don't have a job.
This is the news, so that it's their job.
Right, yeah. I mean, like...
But you know who it upset? It upset Joe Scarborough.
Yeah.
Which was really weird to me. And that's what woke me up. He was like, well, what would you think what would you have her do more?
Was she gonna like make a clone and be on 3 shows at once, or what?
Exactly. So, Joe Scarborough being him and Mika being the senior, the junior guy was like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was clearly a sit down and shut the fuck up moment.
Yeah. It's all good.
It's all good. And I don't know. I'm just like, hey, I need we are 36 days out.
Okay.
Harris win or no?
I think she's gonna win. And
that is huge for you. That is a huge, that is very huge for you, bro.
Yeah.
Because I am thinking like you. I am looking for all the holes in the Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I would say like right now, and this is something I was going to say about the polls. I heard a really good analogy of polls and predictive values. So think of a poll as you would a scale, and if you're like me, I've been through those times when I was trying to lose weight, like even when I was in school, I was on the wrestling team, and let's say on the wrestling team, I currently weigh 310. In order for me to compete, I have to be 275. On game day, I need to be 275. The only way I can know if I'm making the right progress towards my goals is to weigh myself. Right. The only problem is that every scale is different. In fact, let's say in the case of politics, the scale are wildly inaccurate. So you step on one scale, you weigh 215, and you step on another scale, you weigh 312. On another scale, you do this. It's like, God damn, these scales are almost useless because they don't really give me the accurate weight, especially when I know that the only scale that matters is the one I'm going to step on before the match, And so the question is like, one, do scales matter? Do polls matter? And two, do they predict anything? And both the answer is yes, they matter. And two, they don't predict anything. The question of the scales, like we said, is over time. So like if you're on the diet and exercise routine, and even if the scale is inaccurate, like are the plethora of the scales that you're standing on showing a downward projection so that you are at the weight that you're trying to get to for game day, and that is what is showing right now.
Projection. So
projections, and you have to also think about what they're doing, right? So like if you're not dieting and exercising, you're not going to get down to the weight that you're getting at, right? So you also have to take into consideration what the campaigns are doing and the scales. What are the scales saying? So like everything that people are saying about their campaign is that it is run well. Her appearances are good. Even though she has bad polls, they're going in the right direction. Trump's campaign is fucking spiraling. he's sounding stupid. He's not reaching the right people, and they're not going in the right direction. So like it, by all means, unless you like injure yourself before game day, she's gonna be at weight and she's gonna win. Like that's what I look at. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 36 days. Something tragic could happen, but
yeah, but I think it's more likely to happen to him than her.
Absolutely. I don't know anything about what's likely to happen. I'm just saying, like, with all the chaotic world the way it is, I just kind of keep that out.
Well, I forgot to go over that. There's a looming dock worker strike.
Yeah. There's here's another thing that was coming up in the news. Like there was another assassination attempt on Trump from the Iranian government.
Oh,
they foiled it, which would, like the shooter never got in his camp or whatever, but they actually intercepted an assassin. And I'm just like, that's fucking crazy. It's fucking CIA.
It's crazy that they want him dead like that, though.
They want him dead. I was just like, holy shit.
I mean, so does the rest of the world, but
I know they were fucking with his campaign, and that was another thing that came up was
and they are still fucking with it is the question.
Yeah. So like one of the things they kind of did that email hack thing they did to the DNC, and they sent a dossier with all of JD Vance's Oppo research to different people.
Oh, so
there was nothing really juicy in it, but the newspapers themselves decided not to publish it this time because they knew from 2016 of what, like, this is a foreign government, and I don't think they saw any news value in it because all of it was kind of publicly available. But last week, someone did try to publish it, and what was it? Twitter took it down, and the website ended up removing it. You know, it was just interesting to see how, people were saying how they will criticize the Democrats for basically doing the same thing for the Hunter Biden laptop shit, when it was posted, and saying like Facebook and Twitter and all these other companies, engaged in censorship by not publishing personal information that was not really pertinent to anything, because that's what
Right. And so now they okay with it because it's their candidate.
they're okay with it because it's their candidate, or that it, would look bad for Vance. They apparently there was nothing like illegal or anything. Everything that's public is actually worse than what's private. The things he's been saying are much more damaging from what I hear. I don't know what's in the dossier, but it's nothing like, no one's like, so what? Like,
yeah, because if it was
juicy, they would have published it.
We would say so.
Yeah, because they recently leaked some text messages. You talked about it last Saturday.
Yeah, they did. That as late as
after January 6th,
as late as February 2020, called. And I think that's the thing that that JD Vance is going to do is, that Governor Walz is going to do is just say, you're an eternal fuck up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to bring up those messages. Like, yeah. Like, I knew
because everybody's like, oh, JD Vance is this and that, this and that. But Governor Walz is petty.
Yeah, he is.
And he's petty as fuck. And I would rather debate somebody. He's smart and petty. You know what I mean? And it's like, because I thought it was going to be really hard for him to get around that. They went and got the guy who sank somebody's career with that whole military thing.
Yeah.
Governor Walz was like, bitch, and so what? I left, and so what? You know what I'm saying? Like, what you want? Bitch, I retired when I was going to retire. I did enough. And he said, I went and continued working for this country. Bitch, what? And what?
Right.
And what? And brought some documents saying, and it's just, and I just think that's the point he's going to take. He's just going to be petty.
Yeah.
Calling him weird and just said, I wouldn't leave him alone with my couch and stuff like. I think people are underestimating Governor Walz and his Minnesota petty.
Yeah,
Minnesota, just like being in the South, that whole bless your heart thing. Them niggas can be like, oh, it's just cut you down. Nevertheless, all right, but let me get. I gotta go to work.
Yeah, let me go and end the
white people.